Yeah, so I thought to do the CSS video for watch the web development video first.
They can click on that button in order to submit the form.
No,
So how would we do that? Well, in order to
mouse is not working.
create an input field, we're going to use an input tag.
Okay, everything is kind of slow. And yeah, these videos are meaningless. I just do this because I just want to do or something. I don't know, to be honest.
Whose type, in this case, is going to be text. There are a number of different ways that users might provide input to a forum. They might type in text, they might choose from a drop-down menu, they might choose from a radio button option, or they might provide input as by clicking on a button, for example. In this case, we're specifically using the type attribute of other elements inside of other elements. What we might really like is some way of specifying that we want to style our web page in some way. We want to add color, we want to add spacing, we want to add some sort of other layout to our page as well. And in order to do that, we're going to use a second language that we're going to call CSS, short for Cascading Style Sheets. In particular, we'll use the latest version of CSS, CSS3, which gives us the ability to take an HTML page and tell the web browser how we would like it to be styled. Instead of just black text in the same font on a white background, we can begin to specify particular CSS properties of how we would like some basic ideas of adding some style to our page. And we'll go ahead and copy the same hello.html from before. And maybe in addition to hello world, I display an H1, some big heading at the top that says like welcome web page, beneath which is just the text hello world. And now imagine that I want to add some style to this heading at the top of the page. Maybe instead of being left aligned, I want it to be centered. Maybe instead of just being black text, take the style code from the H1 and apply it to this H1 as well. So that both of my H1 elements now have the exact same page. And advantage number two is we've been able to factor out the style code to somewhere else just to make it a little bit cleaner. So that instead of apply it to another page, if I wanted to, I need to copy the exact same CSS code, put it inside of another page, but then we run into the same problem of duplication, where I've now had to repeat myself across multiple different pages, putting the exact same CSS code across all those different pages. So there is an improvement of the style element inside of this HTML page. I'll just create a new file that I'll call styles.css, inside of which is going to be all of the CSS that I care about. I want to take every H1. I don't need to include any CSS at all. Instead of this I just changed the styling once. I changed the styles.css file, and then all of the web pages is going to say something like hello world. And now I'm going to add some style to this page in order to control the size of this div.
It would be really great if you like YouTube. Remember to every single time I left a video where I was high or something, like the pause system, that works really, but sometimes it doesn't work. And now this video was sent there where I left it out, and yeah, I am like wanting to say something and can't say it properly in English now. And yeah, it's very visible that I'm
the size of this section of my webpage. I could how the style of this page is going to map on to the way that we're modifying these HTML elements. And I would like to style this div in a couple of ways. One thing I can do is give the div a background color. Let me change its background color to blue, for example. And then I can say, all right, I'd like to give this div a width and a height, some size information. I can say, go ahead and give this div a width of 100 pixels and maybe a height of 400 pixels.
Background, yeah. Background color blue. Okay, I have messed it out here. Just and I don't want the keyboard to show and pop off. And I think I will like transfer the keyboard, and I think I will message him back later. And now let's see what to do. Background color. Okay, background color. Come on, background color. Blue. Now blue. Okay, after that. Now DH. Okay, not like this. Not like the snip is, but I think there's something wrong with me, with my code or something. Let's see. Okay, after that, IDT with local snippet. Honestly, I don't get it. What will that look like? Local? Let's see about getting a local. Okay, why are they giving me double things? And mosquitoes are all around me. Like, what is happening? Why is that thing coming in double? Oh, okay, I get it. Why that is coming in double? That's for my shortcut. Now I get to go. So many moves. Wow. 100 pixel dx, and then GH2. Okay, my height is on HEI GH2. Okay, GH2. Now I don't know what to do. Like, what is next snippet? SNIPPET, and I'm taught in that in programming or like that kind of stuff. If you don't know anything, like if you have a very small question or something, just Google it. And my phone is now so slow that okay, SNIPPET. Come on. Okay, I should have given like snippet in dictionary. Okay, let me know the pronunciation first. What's the pronunciation?
Snippet.
Snippet. Okay. A small is a brief extract snippets of information about the war. Okay, I don't know that. Snippet in HTML. An HTML snippet is an array consisting of series of elements that format the HTML tree. Those elements are one of the two things: either a string which requires text to be included in the snippet, or an array which requests an HTML tag to be included. I will go for this one. Okay. Now what? I think I will let the browser be like that. Be as it is. Okay. And I will do this here, and I think I should probably reply him. Okay, give this also 100 px and MD column, and I don't want the line, and then what?
So now when I go ahead and open up size.html, this is what I see. I see in a 100 by 400 pixel wide vertical or rectangular section on my page, I see the words hello world. And so you might imagine if you have multiple different elements on your page, as your web pages start to get a little bit more complex, you probably want to have some more precise control over how wide or how tall any particular element is. And these width and height attributes can be very helpful because I can very easily change the width to say like 500 pixels, for example. And now when I refresh the page, now I see that the width of this page, this div, this section of the page, has actually now gotten a lot wider. And so we have the ability to control size using CSS. Go ahead and close some of these pages that I no longer need. And now take a look at some other things that we can do. In addition to controlling the size, and let me change this color to something a little bit lighter, something like orange, such that now if I open up size, it looks like this. I'll make this a little bit smaller. Let's try 200 by 200 pixels. It looks now like this. You might imagine there are some other changes that I might like to make. Like this hello world, for example, is very close to the edge of this particular div. It's right up against the upper left corner of that div. I might want to change that by adding what we might call some padding to this particular HTML element, some space, just so that the content of the element isn't so close to the border of the element itself. So for example, one thing I can do is inside this div, add some padding. Say maybe I want 20 pixels worth of padding on the inside of the element, such that now when I refresh the page, we see that we have some padding along the outside of the element, so that hello world now shows up not right up against the edge of the element, but inside a little bit as well. And if we have a particular HTML element that maybe is too close to the edge of the screen, maybe it's too close to the top of the screen, we can also add space around outside of the element by adding what we call margin to the element as well. So I can say, let's give it 20 pixels of margin inside of this div. And then refresh, and now we see that whereas before this div was very close to the upper left edge of the screen, now we've moved it 20 pixels away from everything, so it's got some space on all four sides of it. So that's how we can now use HTML element that maybe is inside of the element, content of the element, now like this. You might, such that now, if I open up size, it looks like this. I'll make this a little bit smaller. Let's try 200 by 200 pixels. It looks now like this. You might imagine there's some other changes that I might like to make. Like this hello world, for example, is very close to the edge of this particular div. It's right up against the upper left corner of that div. I might want to change that by adding what we might call some padding to this particular HTML element, some space, just so that the content of the element isn't so close to the border of the element itself. So for example, one thing I can do is inside this div, add some padding. Say maybe I want 20 pixels worth of padding
Okay, that's also in pixels.
on the inside of the element, such that now when I refresh the page, we see that we have some padding along the outside of the element, so that hello world now shows up not right up against the edge of the element, but inside a little bit as well. And if we have a particular HTML element that maybe is too close to the edge of the screen, maybe it's too close to the top of the screen, we can also add space around outside of the element by adding what we call margin to the element as well. So I can say, let's give it 20 pixels of margin inside of this div. And then refresh, and now we see that whereas before this div was very close to the upper left edge of the screen, now we've moved it 20 pixels away from everything, so it's got some space on all four sides of it. So that's how we can now use margin and padding just to make the page look a little bit nicer to the user, so objects are not too close together or too far apart. Padding, again, is on the inside of the border of the element. I can add 20 pixels of padding, for example, to make sure that the content inside of the element, in this case the words hello world, just have a little bit of space from the border. That's padding on the inside of the element. Margin, meanwhile, is on the outside of the element. We add some margin along the outside of the border to space the element out from other elements that might be nearby, to make sure that there's enough space between the border of the element from the top of the screen and also from the left and also the bottom and the right, that there's no objects there that we're currently creating space from. So by combining width and height and margin and padding,
Okay, I think
we now have the ability, using CSS, to make sure that we're able to lay out our page the way we want to lay out the page, so that elements have the right amount of spacing from each other and are the correct size. So now let's take a look at some other features that CSS is going to give us. In addition to just changing where particular elements are, like centering text or adding size and margin and padding, we can also use CSS to change how elements actually look. We've seen it to change the color of text, changing it from one color like black to another color like blue, but we can also use CSS to be able to change something like the font that we use in order to display text. Modern web pages don't show everything in the exact same font. Usually some designer is choosing what font they want for any particular web page. So let's experiment with those possibilities. I'll now create a new file that I'll call font.html, inside of which will be an HTML page called font. And inside the body, I'll again just have a div that says hello world, same as before. But now, inside of the style tag here, up in the head section of my webpage, I would like to add some font information to this div. And in particular, there are a number of different font-related CSS properties that I can add to control the font of any particular HTML element. One thing I can specify is the font family, specifying what font would I like to use in order to display this text. And maybe I want to display it in Arial, for example, which is a common font used on the internet, such that now, if I open up font.html, I now see in Arial the words hello world, different from the text that I was using before. You can also specify multiple different fonts. Not all computers support all fonts, so I can specify that just in case Arial isn't supported, fall back to any sans serif font, any of the fonts that don't have the little glyphs at the edge of each of the characters. So now if I refresh the page, because my web browser supports Arial, I don't fall back to any...
Let's see. Lang, title, font, style, hello, div. Okay, I get it. WROLD and exclamation mark, and then like style. Let's see at first. DSTYLE and div div, then curly braces. Where is the curly braces in my keyboard? Okay, found it. I need also the second one, so then I can go on and the font family, family, yeah, okay, font family, Arial, okay, my teacher had come and I will go now.